Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hari Om. Hari Om. Let's get started with our invocation.
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननडे कैवर्तककेशवा पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्परैरहरहः पीपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमला प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः.
Okay, Hari Om. So, we have seen the various milestones or the various aspects that we need to work on as we make progress in the spiritual path or undertake a spiritual journey. And it started with Karma Yoga and then moved on to Chitta Shuddhi, Nirveda or dispassion, and Jnana Bhakti. These are the major ones, and when we go with them, we will also, subdivide it into multiple other ones. And each of these, how do we know that we have attained the particular milestone? How have we crossed it? That we know when there is a fructification. So we learned that Karma Yoga gets fructified when there is dexterity in action. Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Chitta Shuddhi gets fructified when there is equanimity. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. And Jnana Bhakti gets fructified when one attains Yogam. Tada Yogam Avapsyasi. And Nirveda, which is nothing but dispassion, it kind of characterizes the person who has crossed these milestones. And there is dispassion both towards the known and the unknown. Shrotavyasya, Shrotavyasya, Shrutasya cha. So Arjuna, once all this learning has been obtained from Bhagavan, Arjuna asks a question. And that question is not really a philosophical question. It is more of a practical question than a philosophical question. And the question implies Arjuna asking that where do I reach? What is my destination? And how should I reach my destination? When we imitate, we talked about imitating a success story, and Arjuna is asking this, and he's asking the lakshana or the characteristics or the nature of a Sthita Prajna. He gives the term Sthita Prajna to a person who has steady wisdom. And it is implied that Arjuna is asking this because he can learn from this Sthita Prajna and then undertake the journey himself. When we imitate a success story or when we imitate a demonstrated example that is perfect, fundamentally we get parameters that define the destination. We can always execute the journey in our own inimitable way, but we get a lot of parameters that are very useful to us. For example, like I said last time, if we are going to Coorg, the data about the milestones, about the destination, which route has a better road, which route does not have a better road, which road to avoid, which road to take, those kind of data. And if someone has gone, let us say 3 days before us, and that person gives us pretty fresh data, or we put on Google Maps, and how much ever possible, Google Maps gives that to us. At that time, we are better informed, and we are able to choose. We are able to choose our route, we are able to choose our stops, and one also finds out what one should avoid. So by comparing and contrasting, one is able to decide on exactly what the way forward should be and execute that in a better manner. So essentially, the nature, the characteristics, the lakshana of the Sthita Prajna becomes my sadhana. Sadhana is nothing but my effort, my undertakings in terms of what I do. So the lakshana of the Sthita Prajna becomes my sadhana. Now, within Arjuna's first question, we saw that there are 4 questions. The first one pertains to the nature of the Sthita Prajna when he or she is in absorption, in samadhi. And the next three questions pertain to the nature of the pragya when he or she is out of samadhi, sthitadi. And we also saw that the opposite of samadhi is vyutthana. Vyutthana essentially means out of absorption. And last time we went up to the stage where Sri Bhagavan answers the first question, which is what are the natures or characteristics of this person who is steady in wisdom while he is under absorption. So essentially Bhagavan answers Arjuna's first part of the first question, and he says that when a person transcends desires, which means goes from a lower level of desire to higher level of desire, and while performing an action completely casts off, completely gives up any connection or any desire, especially to the result, and then this person comes to a stage where he or she finds satisfaction in the self by the self, then this person is a sthita pragya or a person of steady wisdom. So the characteristics or the nature as defined by Sri Krishna when this person is in absorption are, number one, he has transcended desires. Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, the person will not be able to meditate. So remember, this is a person who is under absorption. So when you are under absorption, you are contemplating, you are meditating, you are performing nididhyasana. And if a person has not transcended desires, will not be able to meditate. The second thing is, does not focus on the result while working. Otherwise, the mind will wander. It will wander from the current situation to the future. And the thought of the future will not allow the current work to be performed to perfection. So when under the absorption, the person should not be thinking about what is going to happen in future after the person comes out of absorption. So does not focus on the result. And three, derives absolute and complete satisfaction and is fulfilled in the self. Derives that satisfaction from within, which means that the person is not looking to the external world to fulfill or satisfy himself. The external environment, the object world, yes, he experiences the object world, but he's looking to find satisfaction within. And these are the three fundamental characteristics that Bhagavan describes a sthita pragya who is under absorption as. We also, in this concept of thoughtlessness. And what did we see there? We saw that when I become conscious of an object, it becomes my thought. Without an object, there is no thought. So thought essentially is object plus consciousness, which then implies that consciousness is nothing but thought minus object. And when you remove objects from your thought, you reach stages of thoughtlessness. And in samadhi, a person has these characteristics. And in this state, the person is not caught up with the body-mind-intellect paradigm. Because it is the body-mind-intellect paradigm that engages with the world. And when the person is in this state of absorption, she is not caught up with the body-mind-intellect paradigm. This is called samyak adhanam. Samadhi is also called samyak adhanam. Samyak means very well. And means adhanam, the of adhanam means fully. And dhanam means placing. Placing oneself fully is nothing but samadhi. Now, the second part of Arjuna's question, which is what we are to be covering today, that is about the nature of the sthita pragya, the nature of the person who is established in wisdom when he or she is out of samadhi, sthitadi. And how does this person, and Arjuna is quite specific, he says, how does this person respond? How does this person interact? How does this person then disengage and then re-engage again? This is where we were the last time. Let's go further and recite verses 56 and 57.
Dukkeshvanudvigna manaha.
Dukkeshvanudvigna manaha.
Sukheshu vigataspruhaha.
Sukheshu vigataspruhaha.
Vitaragabhaya krodhaha.
वीतरागभयक्रोधः
स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते
स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते
यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः
यत्सर्वत्रानभिस्नेह
तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम्
तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम्
नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि
नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम् नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
So we see two words used here, dukheshu, sukheshu. Dukheshu means in adversity, when things are not going well. Sukheshu means in prosperity, when things are going well. So dukheshu, in adversity, anudvigna manaha. Now udvigna means that which suffers within. When we become attached to our suffering, that is udvigna. When we become attached, meaning, hey, I'm suffering, that realization, that feeling of suffering, and then saying, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this pain? Why am I going through this loss? Why am I going through this tragedy? Why am I going through this discomfort? And that repeatedly going on in the mind is attachment to that suffering. And what's happening? So when you get attached to suffering, that is udvigna. And anudvigna does not get attached to suffering. So udvigna happens in the subjective mind. It happens deep inside. So when deep inside you are not associating yourself, and when you are not, you may be experiencing it, but not getting attached. That is anudvigna manaha. The manaha means mind. Anudvigna is when you don't get attached. There's a beautiful story to, I'd actually, in one of the sessions earlier, I talked about Jesus Christ on the cross and praying that, oh Lord, please forgive these people because they know not. That's an example. Another beautiful story is of Sri Ramana Maharishi. He had to undergo surgery to get a cancerous tumor removed. And he was very involved with his treatment. He's a jnani, is very involved with what's going on. Like I said, may not be attached, but very involved. So very involved with his treatment, inquiring about each step in terms of what's happening, what is the doctor doing, what are the nurses doing, what are the results looking like, and so on, getting into every minor detail. And he also was particular about minimum intrusion. He was aware that he is suffering through this in his body, and he needs to get it resolved. But at the same time, he wanted minimum intrusion, while accepting the need that this needs to be taken care of and he needs to go through this process. So when the anesthesiologist came and he was, going to administer the anesthesia, as always, Swamiji asked, what is this? What are you going to administer into me? What is the purpose? What will it achieve? And so on and so forth. And the anesthesiologist explained to him. Swamiji said, I don't want this. Because if it's going to solve the sole purpose of me not feeling the pain, I don't need it. So please don't administer it. And the surgeon was taken aback. Surgeon said, no, Swamiji, you have to take it. And Swamiji was very particular and he said, please don't worry about it, and instructed the surgeon to start the surgery without anesthesia. The surgeon got into the procedure, deep into it, and obviously a really good doctor. Suddenly, after about an hour or so, realized that, oh my God, Swamiji didn't take anesthesia. So he looks at Swamiji, and later on, after the procedure is over and all that has happened, the surgeon shared with others that I saw this face. And to me, it appeared as if the person that I'm operating upon and this person whose face I'm looking at are two different people. All I saw was absolutely a meditative state of calmness. And here I am performing surgery on this saint. So he just couldn't believe what was going on. So that is Dukkheshu Anudvignamana, where Swamiji was going through all of that, but did not get attached. The same like, Jesus Christ on the cross. Sukheshu Vigata Spriha. Sukheshu, like I said, is in prosperity. Vigata Spriha means longing. And Vigata Spriha means gone away. That longing has gone away. Vigata also means attachment. So does not linger. There is no hankering. There is no longing. Does not hold on to, though something is there. So when there is prosperity and can see this prosperity, does not hold on to it. For example, when we go to this very famous Tirumalai temple, it takes hours to reach the sanctum sanctorum. You're in the queue, and most people, 99% of the people, take hours together to reach the sanctum sanctorum. And what happens once you reach the sanctum sanctorum? There is the Jargandi, Jargandi there means they're saying, keep going. You don't get even probably a couple of seconds, maybe 3-4 seconds, 5 seconds in front of the Lord. You have spent 5 hours or maybe 15 hours in the queue. And then you get there and you get 10 seconds maybe 15 seconds. Okay. And you're pushed away because there is this huge line and they need to make sure that everybody. So this is Lord's way. Maybe the Panditji who's standing there is not saying Jargandi, it's God who is saying Jargandi. So this person who in that fleeting moments experiences deep satisfaction. Whenever I've seen my mother go to that temple and even other temple, in that fleeting moment, deep satisfaction. And you come back and moves on happily with life till you go there the next time, right? So in that capability of moving on is what probably Bhagavan is teaching us to do in Tirumalai. And then Bhagavan says, Vitaraga Bhayakrodha, free from attachment, free from fear, free from anger, which means free from all mental hang-ups. Vita is free, Raga Bhaya Krodha. Attachment, Raga is attachment, Bhaya is fear, Krodha is anger. So the mind is pellucid, the mind is placid, like a beautiful water lake bed. You see the water that is pure, crystal clear, and is also still. And this is one of the most meditative sights if you have seen a lake that is both pellucid and placid at the same time. Beautiful meditative sight. So this person has that kind of a mind, may be involved, especially when it pertains to someone else, but never attached. That kind of a mind, such a muni, such a reflective saint, uchyate, which means is called. What is it? What is this reflective saint called? Sthitavihi, of steady wisdom. So dhi is wisdom, sthita is well established, sthitavihi. So Arjuna asked, how does this person express? Kim prabhasheta? That's what Arjuna asked. What did Bhagavan say? How does he not express? Is how Bhagavan answers. So look at the beauty of it. Okay, so thus when we imitate, so with Arjuna's purpose of knowing the characteristics of this person, this established person in wisdom, knowing those characteristics, I will also learn. So Bhagavan is saying, this is how that person is not, which means this is how you should not be. So we learn more about what to avoid while retaining our individuality. And then Bhagavan continues. So what does Bhagavan say? Ya sarvatra nabi sneha. Sneha means affection. Sneha means love. Abhisneha means that kind of affection which comes from association, comes from identification. Father, mother to child, child to father, mother, spouse to each other, friends to each other, and so on. any joy of theirs, any sorrow of that person's is a joy or sorrow for me also, because I identify with that person. So that is abhisneha. When you buy a new car, or sometimes even when you have an old car, you identify, this is my car. Unlike the driver example that I gave the other day. Okay, and when you identify, a scratch in the car is equal to a scratch in your heart. It's extremely painful. So when you possess, you become possessed. And anabhisneha means without attachment. And what? Tat tat prapya. Prapya means obtained. Tat tat, that which this person has obtained. What has this person obtained? That unattachment, that ability to being unattached, like Swami Ramana Maharaj, unattached to that pain while he was undergoing surgery, and unattached to Shubha Ashubham. Shubha is when there is congeniality around you. Ashubham is when there is uncongeniality around you. So in this case, in the last verse, Bhagavan talked about the sorrow. Here Bhagavan is saying about the atmosphere, whether it is congenial or incongenial. So when there is something that we really like, that aspect runs away, farther and farther away from us. And when there is something that we want, don't want, and we want to avoid, that keeps coming after us. So whether it is congenial or whether it is uncongenial, whatever it may be, this person neither rejoices, which is na bhinandati, na dveshti, na bhinandati, na dveshti, neither rejoices nor hates nor reviles. That kind of a person, tasya pragya, that tasya, his pragya, wisdom, pratishtita, is well established. So Bhagavan says that a person who is without attachment everywhere, and whether it is pleasant, whether it is unpleasant, whether it is congenial, whether it is uncongenial, neither rejoices nor hates, that kind of a person, it is said that his wisdom or her wisdom is well established. So Arjuna's question now, what has Bhagavan done? Bhagavan has addressed this in these two verses. How does the Sthita Pragya think, speak, express himself? And Bhagavan answers by saying, what is it that she does not think? What is it that she does not speak? And what is it that she does not express? So there are 6 of these. Under sorrow, the person does not express suffering. That is number 1. Under joy, the person does not express longing. The person does not express himself as attached, fearful, or angry. Vita raga bhaya krodha. The person does not express herself with a sense of identification. The person does not rejoice in congenial situations. And lastly, the person does not hate in uncongenial situations. One of the best examples in our scriptures, in Purana, is Sri Rama. Sri Rama, if you read Ramayana, he goes through infinite such situations. And the one that I want to touch right now is, imagine a situation. Imagine a crown prince, and in the next 1 hour or 2 hours, he's going to get crowned as king. And the father is going to put the throne on his head. And all preparations for that has happened. He has been decked up. His entire mindset is towards, how he's going to take over, how he's going to go through the ceremony, how he's going to take over the kingdom, and how he's going to administer and run the country, the state. And then in a flash, he's asked to go to the forest. Vanvas for a number of years, right? 1 second, I'm thinking that I'm going to become a king. The next second, I'm being told, take out all your, beautiful clothing and attire, wear a bark or a lion cloth and go to the forest. There's nothing that you can take with you. And he goes through both of them with that equanimity. He goes through both of them with these 6 characteristics that Bhagavan says one should not display, without any of them. So it's like a person when you stand on top of a mountain and you let's say you are towards the edge of the mountain ranges, and you are looking at the plains below. The plains below are about 5,000 feet, maybe 6,000 feet below. When you are on top at that height, there are undulations in the plain below, but standing at that height, you don't see any of this. So when you raise yourself beyond those undulations of life, you don't experience those undulations, you don't feel those undulations. So Bhagavan is telling Arjuna that you got to raise yourself above, and when you do that, you will not experience the highs and the lows of life. So the next question that Arjuna asked is, Kim Asita? How does he sit? Now we should not take this literally in terms of how does he sit. Obviously the Sthita Pragya is not sitting all the time. Okay, or the Sthita Pragya is not sitting in Shirsasana. Okay, so the question implies, how does he relax? How does he absorb? How does he disengage? We will see that in the next verses. We'll do 58 and 59 together.
Yada samharate chayam
Yada samharate chayam
kurmoganiva sarvashaha
kurmonganiva sarvashaha
indriyanendriyartebhya
indriyanendriyartebhyah
tasya prajna pratishtita
tasya pragya pratishtita
vishaya vinivartante
vishaya vinivartante
niraharasya dehinaha
niraharasya dehinah
रसवर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य
रसवर्ज्यं रसोऽप्यस्य
परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते
परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते
यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽगानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणेन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते.
Yada. Yada means when. When what? When, just like eva. Eva is like. So I'm just rearranging the words, for us to make sense in English. So when like what? Like a tortoise. Kurma. Kurma is a tortoise. When like a tortoise, that withdraws, samharate, withdraws. Withdraws what? Anga. Anga means limbs. From all sides. You have seen a tortoise, when the tortoise needs to withdraw, all the limbs, all the four legs and the head, everything goes in a very smooth manner. Just like that, this yogi, I am means this person. Who? I am means this, actually, referring to this human being, this yogi, this Sthita Pragya. Just like that, this Sthita Pragya, samharate, again, withdraws. What? In the case of this Sthita Pragya, indriyanendriyarthebhya. Indriyanendriyarthebhya. Indriya means the senses. Indriyarthebhya is the objects that are attached to the senses. For example, if I'm tasting a cup of coffee, the object attached to my taste is the coffee. If I'm seeing a beautiful flower, the object that is attached to my sight is the flower. So this person withdraws the senses from these objects. Then tasya, then his pragya, which is wisdom, pratishtitha, is steadied. So when, like a tortoise that withdraws its limbs from all sides, this yogi withdraws his senses from the sense objects, then his wisdom is steady. So the tortoise actually withdraws its limbs in a jiffy, with utter ease. It's like there's no strain. Like that it withdraws in a flash. And it's a beautiful example that is used by Bhagavan. Whereas we human beings, for us to withdraw is the hardest thing to do. We'll say, I'll wait for Ekadasi, then I'll see what I have to abstain from. Maybe I'll do some fasting on that day. 2 weeks from now. Yesterday was Ekadashi, now I'll do it for 2 more weeks I have. Let me prepare for it till then. Then we'll say, okay, every Tuesday I'll not have meat. Okay, I'll abstain from it every Tuesday. Right? Or, I know I have to leave smoking. Let me reduce it from 10 cigarettes to 8 cigarettes. See, I'm making progress. Then from 8, I'll go to 6. One day I'll leave. The tortoise doesn't do that. It just withdraws. So just like the tortoise, when one is able to withdraw like that in a jiffy, with ease, with utter ease, at any point in time, whenever required, that is what, that is when you say that the wisdom of this person is established. Pratishtita pragya. Now, in our subdivision where we live, there are lots of snakes. Okay, some of them non-poisonous like a rat snake, and some of them quite poisonous like vipers and cobras. Okay, and this is a green area, so we are in. This used to be a farm land, like man has occupied forest, and you'll find leopards coming in towards Bannerghatta. You'll find elephants and leopards coming in Bangalore. Here we have snakes, who are going around all the time, and people are pretty paranoid about it. So Jairam, who's actually there in this session, he attends all our sessions, and a friend of mine, he took the initiative to train our security guards to become snake catchers. So they were all trained, and they became snake catchers. They will catch the snake and release them in a safe environment. Safe environment for the snake, because here if you don't catch and release them, some people will probably kill them. So more safe for them than for us. Right? So release and catch them and release them in a more safer environment. So when we see a couple of times I've seen these guys catch, and then we get pictures, videos, and I've seen them personally too. It's a pretty it's scary for most people, but for other people it's also quite an admiration the way they do it. They handle it extremely deftly. Okay, as if this creature is of no consequence. Like we are taking our pet dog or a small little cat and brushing it. That's how they handle it, with deftness, with very ease. Sometimes what happens, the snake is coiled around the person and it's writhing all over. Okay, and it's as if this guy who is the snake catcher doesn't even know, doesn't even realize, doesn't even is not worried about it, is not even aware of it. Similarly, this senses are undependable, treacherous, as undependable and as treacherous as a snake that some of us consider. They coil, they creep. It's through the mind. Just like the snake coils through the body of its catcher, they coil and creep through the mind. Very undependable. But to one who has steady wisdom, to this Sthita Pragya, these senses are ever tame. They are subservient. Exactly like that snake is subservient to this master catcher who does it deftly. It's really beautiful when you look at it. And then Bhagavan goes on to say that this person, Dehina, who Dehina? This person who has decided what? Decided to be Nirahara. Ahara means food. Nirahara is to abstain. Ahriyate iti ahara. So in this context, food is what? Food is food that anything that is experienced. Food for the eyes, food for the ears, food for thought. Anything that is experienced is ahara in this context. And a person who has decided to abstain from anything that is experienced is the Nirahara. So when this Dehina decides to be Nirahara, then what happens? Then the Vishaya, which is the object. Okay, like I said, if I decide to abstain from coffee, then that coffee, it turns away. Vinivartante. Vinivartante means turns away. So let us decide on which object. Let us decide on what you want to abstain from. You decide on what you want to abstain from. That object will turn away from you. Initially, I avoid the coffee, but after some time, the coffee avoids me. But what happens? even though that happens, rasavarjam means the object turns away, but it leaves the rasa behind. So when I used to smoke, and when I tried to quit smoking, one of the things I used to do was I used to throw away the packet, or I used to burn the packet. And instead of lighting the cigarette, it'll be like, okay, man, I don't want to smoke. You light the packet, okay? And it's not easy because money was not easy to come by in those days, okay? And to burn a packet which you have brought it requires a lot of, will. So you burn the packet. But guess what? After you burnt the packet, the object has gone away, but the rasa is left. It's still there. Still craving. The craving is there. Rasa means craving. That craving is still there. So what do? You burnt a packet, you go and buy another packet. So that's a peak of wasting money, height of wasting money. So the craving does not go away. But for this Sthita Pragya, for this person with established wisdom, he having seen, having experienced, Drishtva. Drishtva what? Experienced what? Param, the Supreme. For a person who has experienced the Supreme, how do you experience the Supreme? By letting go of the lower, which is what we just discussed earlier, right? So when you transcend desires, when you go higher and higher, and finally attain the Supreme, for that person, the rasa, rasopyasya nivartate, the rasa of his, that craving of his, that turns away and goes away. So not only does the object turn away from such a person, the craving also turns away from this kind of a person. And how does this happen? Because the person is completely, fully satisfied within. And when a person is completely, fully satisfied within, the lacuna is nothing but vacuum, the unfilled spaces. That lacuna goes away for such a person. So in my, one of the favorite examples that I quoted again and again and again, Federer, Roger Federer, okay? So in that, my famous FedEx example, when FedEx, who is a person who has seen the Supreme, he is known as the world's forever best tennis player. I mean, I debate that. I'm not entirely in agreement with that. He's definitely a tennis genius, but there are other best players too, like Nadal and Djokovic and Agassi and so on and so forth, right? Sampras and all that. So he's one of the best players in the world, but ultimate genius, a person who has experienced the Supreme in his field. So this kind of a person, what does he do? When he abstains from thinking about a bad shot. So the bad shot is the object. Okay, when he abstains from thinking about the bad shot, that bad shot goes away from his mind. For an ordinary player though, when you hit a bad shot, it keeps lingering. You keep thinking about that bad shot in any sport, right? And when you keep thinking about that bad shot, you have that sense of frustration, that sense of anger, of missing a shot or of playing a bad one. And that leads to a series of poor shots. But when this individual who has seen that Supreme, he is easily able to let go that thought of that bad shot. That bad shot leaves his mind. Then what follows as a result is a series of great shots. And those great shots, they are what we talked about the last time as the Federer opera. It's beautiful. It's like music. He's playing tennis, which is a hard game, but it's like music. It flows like music. So what does Bhagavan say? How does his Sthita Pragya disengage? And he says, one, he withdraws his senses from the sense objects with ease. And then the objects turn away from this person. But the longing remains. But when the person continues to be steady, even though the longing is remaining, then the longing also turns away from this person. So this is a very, very useful verse in the Bhagavad Gita for us, which we must, people like us who are in the pursuit of spirituality, who are in the pursuit of getting better, we must understand this verse, go through it again and practice it. We must practice this withdrawal. Withdrawal from what? Withdrawal of what is undesirable to me during day to day. So whatever is, I have to practice that withdrawal. while I am doing my Karma Yoga. So when I'm doing my Karma Yoga, I practice withdrawing from something that is undesirable. That helps me perform better in that Karma Yoga. And ultimately, when you reach that supreme state, when we keep doing it again and again and again in life, and ultimately reach the state of supreme, when what happens? When we are established in ourself, satisfied by the self, in the self, Atman yevatmana tushtaha. When that stage happens, then because we have done it again and again and again, it will be easier for us to relate. Until that time, if we focus on doing it on a day-to-day basis, our day-to-day life will be much easier. It will be more optimal. It will be easier. It will be easier to win those tennis points. It will be easier to manage those conflicts. That is what life will do. Let us recite the next two verses.
Yatato hyapi kaunteya
Yatato hyapi kaunteya
purushasya vipaschitaha
purushasya vipaschitaha
indriyani pramatini
indriyani pramatini
haranti prasabham manaha
haranti prasabham manaha
tani sarvani samyamya
तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य
yukta asita matparaha
युक्त आसीत मत्परः
vashe hi yasyendriyani
वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि
tasya prajna pratishtita
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manaha tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashe hi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita.
Another two beautiful verses in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So yatato hyapi, even when one is putting in this effort, what we just talked about, even when for a person who is striving, even when that person is trying, even then, by the way, this person is wise. Bhagavan refers to this person who is striving as vipaschitaha. Vipaschitaha means a wise person. So a striver is also a wise person. What happens? His senses, indriyani, his senses, they are essentially what? They are essentially pramathini. Pramathini means turbulent by nature, restless. That is the nature of senses. Sitting in meditation, what happens to us? The mind goes all over the place. Okay, it wanders. It's extremely difficult to bring back the mind. Limbs twitch, you feel all kinds of discomfort. The eyes open. After some time, you just open your eyes. Non-stop tickling. The mind is just monkey mind. So even for a person who is a wise person, because the wise only make that effort, and who's striving hard, the indriyani are by nature turbulent, and because of that, what do? Prasabham. Prasabham means by force, forcibly. Forcibly, they take away the mind. Prasabham haranti manaha. Haranti means take away. Manaha is mind. So even if the mind is quietened through effort, it takes a lot of effort to quieten the mind. Even when that happens, the senses are essentially turbulent and they take the mind away. It's like daylight robbery. The robbers are there, it's broad daylight. The security guard is there, the bankers are there, the manager is there, customers are there. They come in broad daylight, everyone is watching. They empty the coffers of the bank and they're gone. Similarly, even when this aspect of discrimination, viveka, is standing guard for this person who is making that effort, if the sense organs, the senses come like daylight robbery and they take the mind and go away. And suddenly after some time you'll discover, where is the mind? Somewhere wandering, maybe 20 years before in your life, thinking about something, thinking about the future, thinking about a friend, thinking about an enemy, something or the other. The mind has gone somewhere else. Like daylight robbery, the senses take away the mind. Therefore, what should or what does the Sthita Prajna do? Tani sarvani samyamya. Samyamya means having restrained, having mastered the senses, having controlled the senses. Tani sarvani. Tani sarvani means all of them. Tani is them, sarvani all of them. And then the person makes the mind even more still, even more quiet, even more calm, more stiller, quieter, calmer. How does the person do that? The technique is given. Yukta asita matparaha, intently studied in me. Bhagavan is speaking here. Firmly intent on the Lord, firmly intent on the higher ideal. So in my FedEx example, firmly intent on the game of tennis, which is his higher ideal. That's Lord for him, that's God for him. So when we are firmly intent on the higher ideal, God actually assumes the form of the higher ideal. So Bhagavan says here, Yukta asita matparaha. Matparaha is me. Yukta asita, intently, fully possessed, instead of being possessed of the other desires, being possessed and steady in me. When we hold on to the higher ideal, essentially what happens, holding on to the higher, you are able to let go of the lower. It is like climbing a ladder. When your foot is firmly fixed on the higher step, you are able to let go of the lower step. If your foot is not fixed on the firm, when we learned to climb those ladders, all of us would have experienced this, that single ladder, up on a wall. For us to be able to climb, the upper foot should be firm, and then the lower foot is able to let go, and then goes to the next step, gets firm there. Once it is firm there, the lower foot is able to let go. So like climbing a ladder, when we get fixed to the higher, the lower can be let go. And then what does this person do? This person is controlling, vashihi. Vashehi means, in Hindi it is called vashme. Vashme means under control. In this way, when one is able to not allow the mind to control or the senses to control her, but on the contrary is controlling the senses, that time, that is yashendriyani. So, vashehi yashendriyani. Not allowing the mind to control, but rather controlling the mind and the senses. Tasya pragya pratishtita. Her wisdom is settled. Pratishtita means settled. And why does one have to master the mind in addition to mastering or controlling the senses? Why is that required? We see in the next two verses.
Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha.
Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha.
Sangasteshu pajayate.
Sangatyeshu pajayate.
Sangat sanjayate kamaha.
Sangat sanjayate kamaha.
Kamat krodho vijayate.
Kamat krodho vijayate.
Krodhat bhavati sammohaha.
Krodhat bhavati sammohaha.
Sammohat smriti vibramaha.
Sammohat smriti vibramaha.
Smriti bhramshat buddhinasho.
Smriti bhramshat buddhinasho.
Buddhinashat pranashyati.
Buddhinashat pranashyati.
Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. Sangasteshu pajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Kamat krodho bijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. Smriti bhramshat buddhinasho. Buddhinashat pranashyati.
So when this pumsaha means man. Dhyayato means thinking. On what? On vishayan. on objects of the senses. That when this man is thinking about the objects of the senses, what happens? Sangha. Sangha means attachment. Attachment in what? Esho, in them, in these objects. Upajayate, arises. And from that sangat from attachment, sanjayate is born, kama, desire. And kamat, from desire, anger, krodha, ubajayate, arises. Upajayate arises. Upajayate arises quickly. Krodha arises very quickly. Krodha comes very fast. You'll find sometimes even the most quiet, calm people suddenly, like a switch on, boom, explodes. So Krodha comes very fast. So when a man thinks of objects, attachment arises from them for the objects. And one starts investing in that object, putting value in the outcome that object would bring. So you start thinking, that the taste of that coffee and what is that value? This coffee is, it should be that dark South Indian filter coffee. That's what I want. That South Indian filter coffee. That's the value that you put into that. That's that perceived value. Go into that level of detail in terms of the outcome that you desire from that cup of coffee. And from that attachment, desire born. Now, desire, like we saw earlier, is the fastest growing creeper in the mind. It actually envelops the mind, like that snake wriggles around and goes around that body of the catcher. This creeper of a desire, it just goes into the mind, whirls around and goes into the mind. And from that desire arises anger at a very fast clip. And anger is nothing but temporary insanity. And it comes at a very fast clip. And continuing, Bhagavan says, from anger, krodhad, bhavati sammohaha, comes delusion. From anger comes delusion. Sammohat, smriti vibhramaha. Smriti is what you have heard. Whatever you have heard is lost. Vibhramaha is lost. So, sammohat, from delusion, comes loss of memory. And smriti bhramshad, from loss of memory, buddhi nasho, destruction of buddhi. In this context, destruction of the discriminative capacity, the ability to distinguish between what is temporary, ephemeral, and what is permanent, long-standing, nitya. Buddhi nashat pranashyati, from destruction of that discrimination comes perishment, perishes. What perishes is, we started our sessions with this. When we started, what did we say? What is the param purushartha of a human being? Ultimately, whatever we do in life, whatever our vocation is, whatever our efforts are, whatever, ultimately we seek that everlasting happiness. We are aware that we have got joys in the world, we have got sadness in the world, the ups and downs and all that. But what we seek is that everlasting happiness, the happiness that is deep and the happiness that is long lasting. That Parama Purushartha, that happiness is perished, it perishes. So from anger comes delusion, from delusion comes loss of memory. Memory of what? Memory of the wisdom that has already been gained. That is no longer, Vibraha means not available anymore. It's like the recalling power is lost. In computer language, you have the memory and then you have to recall from the memory. The memory is stored in the cloud nowadays. In the olden days, it would be stored in, the servers, right? And cloud is nothing but a bunch of servers in a large warehouse, not the real cloud. So recalling from that memory is not available anymore. There is something that has come in between to disrupt it. That is gone. And from that loss of memory comes the destruction of viveka, destruction of discriminative capacity. And when the loss of viveka happens, there is loss of clarity. And from that destruction of discrimination, the Parama Purushartha, the goal of ultimate happiness, perishes. So this is, Bhagavan is describing nothing but what we may refer to as the ladder of fall, the inverted ladder where you go down. So the ladder of fall starts with Vishaya Dhyana. Vishaya Dhyana is thinking about the object. And that thinking about the object leads to Sangha. Sangha is attachment to that object. And that attachment leads to pleasure-seeking propensity. You want to get something from it. You want some value out of it. Like that South Indian filter coffee. Any coffee will not do. That is nothing but kama. Kama means desire. The I want, I plus I want. You remember that? Now, when kama is come, it's a fork, it's a Y junction. In that fork, you can either get the kama satisfied or you don't get it satisfied. Actually, in most cases, most human beings, 70-80% of the time, the desires are not fulfilled. When the desires are not fulfilled, it leads to krodha. That's what Bhagavan is talking about. The anger, the krodha. And krodha leads to sammoha, which is delusion. Now let us for a moment examine what happens if kama is fulfilled. Even if kama is fulfilled, then you want more. You've got something, you want more. Which is what? Nothing but lobha or greed. Now once lobha is there, again it's a Y junction, it's a fork. And in that fork of greed, either you get satisfied or you don't get satisfied. If the greed is satisfied, it leads to madha or pride. You become very proud because again and again you desired, that happened. Check, you got it. You desired more, that happened. Check, you got it. You desired even more and more and more to the extent of being greedy. Everything you got. So you get that pride. And if you don't get, when the lobha is not satisfied, because some other person is getting the lobha satisfied, you get matsarya, which is jealousy. Now exactly like krodha led to sammoha, krodha bhavati sammoha. Similarly, pride or madha and matsarya also lead to sammoha. Like madahad bhavati sammoha or matsarya bhavati sammoha. So that delusion then further leads to smriti bhramsha. Smriti bhramsha is loss of some memory of what you already have known, the wisdom that you already possessed. That leads to buddhi nasha, loss of discriminative capacity. And then leads to pranashyati, which is the perishing of the parama purushartha. So this is what Bhagavan has described here. So let me finish with a story. So there was this king who, went out for hunting with his chief minister. So both of them, on their horses, they are going for hunting. The king is extremely excited about the hunt. He is thinking about what he's going to get. So he's thinking about the trophy. He's thinking about the game. So he's going to get that game. He's going to shoot it down. He's going to carry the trophy, hang it in his wall in the palace, and so on and so forth. So there's tremendous expectation from the hunt. And the day goes on and on and on. Unfortunately, there's no game. He's not getting anything. There's nothing that they have shot. So the king is getting frustrated, and he's complaining to the minister. The minister says, let's delight in the glory of the Lord. Mat paraha. Let's delight in the glory of the Lord. In a while, the weather turns bad. Okay, it's cold, it's raining, it's, damp. And, the king is starting to shiver. The minister is shivering too. And the king very keen still on that trophy. Okay, the mind is still fixed in that, that in this case, not the South Indian filter coffee, but that game. So wants to give it some more time. Maybe I'll get it. Then let's go home before it gets too bad. Let's just try once more. And then they realize that they have lost their way. So the weather is bad. They have not got anything. And now it's cold, damp, and they've lost their way too. So now the king is getting angry. So the frustration has led to anger, and he started scolding the minister. How can you do this to me? You are the minister. You need to take care of all of this. Because of you, we are in this state now. It's all your fault. And he's angry. He's frustrated, angry. The minister still is calm and he says, let's delight in the glory of the Lord. Suddenly the king's horse trips, he falls down. And as he falls down, he realizes that he's hurt himself badly. He's actually broken a finger, and that finger is completely broken off. It's gone away, badly injured. Now the king is, in addition to being cold, in addition to being damp, in addition to being very angry, is also in a lot of pain. So the anger only goes up. And the minister looks at him and says, "Sir, let's delight in the glory of the Lord." The king shouts at the minister, "You shut up." He gets so angry that he asks him to shut up and find me some water to drink. You don't even have water now. All our water is finished. Get me some water to drink. So they look for a well and they find a well, but unfortunately the well is practically dry. Some muddy, slushy water at the bottom, deep inside. And the king is now furious. He's extremely angry. The minister still is calm and he says, "Let's delight in the glory of the Lord." Now the king is just, he's wild with anger, and overcome by anger, he pushes the minister into the well. And as the minister is falling into the well, his voice is echoing, "Let's delight in the glory of the Lord." The king is like, what, get lost. And now he says, "Let me find my way back home. Let me go back to the palace." And he starts looking for his way. And at least, his minister's irritating voice is no longer with him, remembering that law. As he's going, trying to find his way, suddenly there is a band of cannibals who pounce on him. And they capture him and take him, imprison him, and take him to their camp. And they put him on the sacrificial altar, where they are going to sacrifice him to their gods. So the mighty king now is a mere prisoner and is set to be sacrificed. He's set to be executed. So as the sacrificial sword is going to fall on his head, one of the cannibals yells, "Stop! This sacrifice is damaged. He doesn't have a finger. Our gods will be very angry if we sacrifice him. Stop, let go of him." So immediately they untie him and let him go. The king is running away for his life. He's extremely thankful that at the nick of the moment, it's almost like I'm just going to die the next second, and now I'm living and I'm running away. So he's extreme thrill suddenly in all those conditions, the pain, the dampness, the cold, the shivering, the fear. In that he's experiencing extreme thrill. Why? Because his life is secure. And then he remembers, that resonates in him, what the minister said. "Let's delight in the glory of the Lord." And he says, "Oh my God, my minister was so right. So let me go find him." So he goes back and he searches for that well. Luckily, he's able to locate it. And he's also very happy to see that the minister is out there below, groaning, but alive. And another good stroke of luck was that the rope with which the cannibals had tied him is still around him. So he uses that rope, pulls the minister out. And he says, "I'm really sorry. I understood, because my finger was broken, my life got saved today." And then he asked the minister, "I understand why God did this to me, because with my broken finger, I could escape. But what about you? You are this person who sings the glory of the Lord. Why is it that you had to rot in this well for the last couple of hours? Look at you, insects have bitten you. There's all kind of bruises around you. It looks like you fractured your arm, and so on and so forth. Why did you have to go through this?" So the minister says, "King, sir, imagine if I had been with you. Your finger was broken, but I am fine. I would have been fine. By now, I would have been their sacrifice. I would have died. And that is the reason God made you push me into this well." So the king is like, happy that both of them are okay. They go about finding their way. And then the two of them, why is it that they had to go through this experience? That is because the king needs to know the value of his minister. This is his chief minister. And if you notice, during the entire journey, he was cursing his chief minister. So the king needed to find out the true value of this chief minister and also learn this invaluable lesson to delight in the glory of the Lord. That is the reason they went through this experience. So while the senses are trying to, come and steal the mind away, while the mind is running away with the senses, if we are able to harness, control the mind, control the senses, and then master the mind, and then think about, keep our mind matparaha in the Lord, then we will be able to achieve the state of Sthita Prajna. Thank you. Hari Om.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Sarika. Any thoughts?
Shrini, I will start. So my question is controlling the senses. Yeah, Indra Bhagwan is the one who controls the senses, right? Bhagwan, you want us to become Bhagwan in this stage itself, huh? Indra Bhagwan, that too. The king of all the
Devas.
So it looks like it's a very, very tough ask. I mean, I am speaking for myself. Yeah. Others may be.
In fact, there are lots of stories in Indian mythology and examples of Sthita Prajna, not the avatars, not Sri Krishna, not Sri Rama, normal Prahlada, okay, is supposed to be much more accomplished than Indra. Indra Bhagwan has his desires.
And, yeah.
Lot of devas, okay, as per our mythology. So the Sthita Prajna is as much or even more accomplished than Indra Bhagwan. Indra Bhagwan actually once, annoyed Lord Narayana to an extent that he, there's a story there, we won't go there right now, but yeah. So yes, he's, so what we are saying here is, even for basic, some of the examples that I gave, right? If a person is a smoker and you want to quit smoking, the first thing you do is you take the object out of your sphere where it can influence you. And when the object has gone away, you see that the craving is still there, the longing is still lingering inside you. You hold firm, you hold steady. And when you hold steady, the longing also. In fact, in my case, the smoking thing, after some time, I developed a dislike towards the smoke, the smell of the smoke. So it actually happened, I mean, there was a time when I was, not 8 or 10, I used to smoke 20 cigarettes a day. Okay, but a time came when I said, one day, the reduction and all doesn't work. You decide and you let go, exactly like the kurma, the tortoise, goes into its shell. One swift action, you let go. That's about it. And I found that, after some time, I was able to resist the lingering, the longing. And after some time, I actually developed dislike. If somebody smokes next to me, even till today, if somebody is smoking next to me, it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I have to steady myself to, handle that with a Sthita Prajna attitude. So yes, it does happen. And when it happens in these examples, we have to keep practicing it and many more.
Cool. So ask is, you are not giving us any discount.
Hi.
Hi, Rama.
Ashok. It was a wonderful session, Ashok, and you rightly said it. You rightly said that withdrawal has to be immediate from these and in one go. I mean, you can't do it in bits and pieces, because in the next shloka itself, it says that in as much as you try to keep it with you, it will draw you further inside. So it has to be just withdrawn in one go, like the way the tortoise pulls itself completely inside. I'm a big addict of games on my iPad and laptop and all that, so I keep playing and then I will lose sight of time. So the one way I do it is simply uninstall the game when I'm, I feel if I'm getting too drawn into the game, and I feel that I've massacred this game quite a bit, and then I'm wasting a lot of my time even with household chores and all that. So I'll simply delete the game, uninstall the game first. It's a wonderful effort, Ashok. I love it.
Thank you, Rama. And yes, you said it right. Yeah, the one single stroke with which you withdraw. That's about it. And in fact, in one of the earlier sessions, I talked about the Hanuman story when he's crossing the ocean, and he comes across 3 obstacles. So we can go back and listen to that. Yeah, sometimes
Brilliant.
you just have to take a swift action. Swift action is
Yeah.
what is the call in some situations.
I also like the way you're relating it to the day-to-day happenings around us. Like, you want to withdraw from smoking, or you want to get rid of your anger or your anxieties and all that. How do you withdraw? All these you're connecting back to daily routines. So it's very nice. Ramananark sessions.
Thank you. So yeah, the day-to-day. I mean, for us, it's not very easy to relate to this ultimate supreme Sthita Prajna. The man of realization, the man of steady wisdom, the woman of steady wisdom. It's not very easy to equate. So what can we do to find in our day-to-day life, where we can use the learnings from Bhagavad Gita to manage and make our day-to-day life better? And then while we are progressing step by step, the time will come when we are closer to that Sthita Prajna, where it will become much more easier.
Wonderful.
Anyone else?
Shrini, the story that you told about this Tirupati Tirumala Darshanam, right?
Right.
So a nice rejoinder. I think I read somewhere, or we were discussing together. That time it came. This fleeting moment when a bhakt sees gets the darshanam.
Right.
So, but it's only for a moment, right? And why it gives so much of satisfaction? There is some people believe it does not matter, yeah, whether you get to see the Lord only for a fleeting moment. More important is that the Lord sees you for that fleeting moment, and that fleeting moment is sufficient for the Lord to bless you.
True. Absolutely. Yes, you're right.
Hi, Srini.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Hi. Yeah. So my question is about how to. I mean, you were giving the example of the smoking, and my question is, it is still the will that you have. It was through will that you could achieve it. But what about someone who, the will after some time gives, you can't hold it that long. So the rasa is still there. And then how do you, is it again going again back, again working for, reworking on your will? Is what will take the obsession or any kind of a habit if you want to get rid of?
Sure. So, so see, you're talking about will and you're talking about rasa. The will is to, in this case, if we are to take it step by step, the way Bhagavan Sri Krishna is teaching us, we first need to develop the will to let go of the thought of the object, which is disconnect the senses from the object of the senses. Right? That is the first one. Right? So we move away from the objects that are driven by the senses. And when that happens, but the longing is left, that is what the rasa is, longing, right? But if we waver, at that moment, if we waver, the risk is that you will fall back. That is where it is very important that God defines the Sthita Prajna as a person who at that crucial moment does not waver, is steady. He continues to remain firm in that resolve. The Vyavasayatmika Buddhi that we read about earlier also.
Right.
So, like we said, the last time or the previous time, we have to actually take a vow at times. You take a vow to stick to the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. And when you do that, you stay firm in the resolve. You are steady in the resolve. And you continue to be firm, then the longing also goes away.
Okay. So it's again a sankalpa that.
It is a resolve, yes.
Yeah. Okay. A strong sankalpa and reiterate it again and again.
Yes, it is a resolve. Yes, reiterated. Yeah.
Okay.
In
Thank
fact,
you.
ultimately, Bhagavan says that even sankalpa you have to let go. Even that desire, sankalpa is also a desire.
Right.
So, ultimately, at some stage, even that desire will not be there.
Yes.
So, for example, somebody like Sri Ramana Maharishi, for him to undergo the surgery without anesthesia, he didn't even have to. He didn't make a sankalpa. It just happened. Because he had reached that level of evolution. That level of growth.
So disassociation with any object for that matter, whether it is his operation, his pain, or whatever.
Exactly. Initially with the object, and after the object, the longing.
The longing also has to be the same. Okay.
So
Thanks.
that actually leads to this question which is here in front of me. Anupama has sent, because she is not able to switch on audio or video. There's some issue. She says, how do we differentiate between withdrawal and detached involvement? So is it that the withdrawal is only from bad habits, and when it is duty, we talk about detached involvement? Actually, not really. Withdrawal is from the sense attachment to the objects. That is the withdrawal part of it. So in the case of performance of duty, what could be the object that the sense could get attached to? The object could be that thought of success. So I'm performing something, I'm performing an action, and every action, there is some kind of an outcome that people normally associate with. So in performing your duty, the attachment could be to that outcome. So even there you have to withdraw. So whether it is your duty, whether it is good, whether it is bad, whether it is anything, and that is why I said it naturally leads to this question, which is, Swami Ramana Maharishi, he didn't have to take a sankalpa saying, I'm not going to take anesthesia, and I take the sankalpa that I will not feel the pain. It just naturally came to him, because over a period of time in his life, I'm sure, he has practiced this withdrawal where he doesn't associate the senses with the sense objects, and he also withdraws from the longing, which lingers on. So the God is talking to us about what lingers on. Even when you are making the effort, even when you are trying, even when you are striving, there is this lingering on that happens, and that is when you have to be of even firmer resolve. And when you have that, and when you have that steadiness, you can be steady without resolve also. Like Swami Ramana Maharishi was steady without resolve. He didn't need that resolve. But initially for people like us, we need the resolve. We need the sankalpa. So withdrawing is related to from the sense attachment to the sense objects, and that lingering longing that remains. So those are the two that we should withdraw from. And that happens whether we are doing our duty, whether we are doing anything else.
Hi, Srini. So when you say detach yourself and withdraw yourself, but then we are also continuously striving for Purushartha. So that longing, that want is there, no? So how, that way we should detach ourselves from wanting to have that as well. But that continues, and that is what God is saying that you should strive for.
Yes, that is true. That you are right. When you come to that, so matparaha, when you are in the state of matparaha, when all you have attached yourself to is matparaha is me. God is referring to himself, the Lord. At that time, even that attachment to that ultimate Purushartha also goes away. But for us to get there, you have, like I said, we have to take baby steps. You know, we have to start with quitting smoking. We have to start with quitting non-veg. We have to start, I mean, whatever it is. I'm not, no offense meant to non-vegetarians, but it is what it is. Right? To start with what we believe that we need to let go of, and keep going, and at some point in time we'll come to the stage where you are able to let go of the Parama Purushartha also, where the entire focus is on where you are in Matpara.
Another thing is that you say detach yourself from all the miseries or the pain you're going through. If somebody is actually going through a pain, how do you detach yourself? You're feeling it all the time. It's hurting you. How do you detach? You're a human being. You're not God. You're not a saint. And you have duties, you know. While performing duties, you go through that pain.
Sure.
Even if you accept it, that yes, this is what is written for me, I need to do it. Like it's for the good, for that story that you said that, okay, believe in God and move on, the king story, what you said. So still, how do you know like it's for your good? Okay, you're gaining experience, but you're going through a lot of pain. How do you detach? It's there with you, it exists.
The attachment is when we talked about it today, right? Attachment is when you allow the sorrow to get deep inside into your subjective personality. It is not that the minister didn't feel the pain of the bruise. It is not that he didn't feel the pain of the fractured arm. It is not that Ramana Maharishi would not have felt anything. You know, I'm sure that feeling would have been there. That awareness of that pain would have been there. The awareness of the joy would have been there. But attachment is not awareness. Attachment is when you associate yourself with that awareness. The association is what brings attachment. So when you are aware, but in fact, one of the common forms of meditation nowadays, the Vipassana, the practice is that be aware, let it come, let it go. Just be aware that there is something. So if you're sitting in a place for hours together, obviously after some time you will get pimples, you will get the goosebumps, you may get the tingling sensation, right? You are aware, you say, yeah, I have that tingling sensation, but you still continue to sit. So if you're able to do that, you're aware that I am craving for the next smoke, but you refrain from having it. So we can do that then, right? So it's not about whether we are a saint or not. It is about who does it is the saint. It's not about whether I am a saint. It is about the saint is able to not get attached. It's the other way around. You consistently not get attached, you become a saint. It is not about whether today am I a saint. So if you are able to refrain from certain things, I'm sure all of you have something or the other that you're able to refrain from. Okay? You are involved, you're not attached. You still have a small.
So is it okay? Is it okay to be involved?
Yeah, of course, you have to be. No, in fact, yes, you have to be involved. You must be involved. Saint is involved. The saint knows what's going on. So that's what Bhagavan says, so what is Arjuna's question? What is the nature of the saint in absorption? What is the nature of the saint when he comes out of absorption and how he interacts? And then he goes back into absorption. So you get involved. So when you come out of absorption, you get involved.
Srini,
you were going to say something.
Yes, I wanted to share my experience with all of you. When we were traveling in the US, we went to a friend's house, and we have been meeting them after so long. And the lady had prepared a wonderful meal. We went around 7:30 and had dinner with them. And she said, please excuse me, I'll not be having dinner with you because I finished my dinner at 3 in the afternoon. So I said, don't you feel hungry then? She said, no, I've been practicing this for 17 years. I said, can I know what got you to this? So she said, I made a visit to a Tibetan place, and there I went through a series of prayers, and I was taught how to meditate and things like that. And I decided that I really liked what they told me. And she had made such lovely meals, and she's a vegetarian, and she made non-veg for her husband, and she has to date has not tasted non-veg. And the meal that she made for us, we don't have onion garlic, and she said it was a challenge to me, but I made it with all my love, and it was so yummy. But it really sat on my mind that here is a person who is so calm, who is so balanced, and who is spending so much time with us. And she's telling me these things. At the same time, maybe it's the perfect example of a detached attachment. Where
Absolutely.
she,
Detached involvement.
detached involvement, where she is showing her love to us, but her senses are so much in control of herself.
True. Yeah. In fact, from Tibetan, the accomplished Vipassana practitioners, they say that they don't eat anything after 12 noon.
Oh, okay.
Around that time, around 12 noon, is their last meal of the day.
So she says she feels absolutely fine the whole day, and next day morning she starts with a meditation, and she carries on her routine with full energy and full enthusiasm.
Yes, two comments. Yeah, one was to just now this story about fasting. Now it has an official name, intermittent fasting. So, to Upasana's question, right? I read somewhere it said that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So
Beautiful.
yeah. So the difference there is the pain will be there. Yeah, as long as you have this body, the pain will be there. Yeah, but whether you suffer, and suffer is that internal process, right? You suffer from that process, that is on you. So you can't avoid pain. I mean, we are in Kali Yuga. There is no question of. I mean, we are in this time, right? So we cannot deny ourselves that we are not in this time. The time is there. We are also there. So pain will definitely be there. Question is, do we allow ourselves to suffer from that pain? So that is where what I read somewhere.
Yeah, to that question, even I feel that when there is pain, it is there, but you also have to, do more introspection. Sometimes you understand the root of it, and it really helps once you understand the root. It really helps you to come out of it, and there is always a learning, and I mean, you come out more grateful for everything that you have in life. I mean, pain teaches you a lot of things. I mean, if there is no pain, I think you will never grow. But understanding what is the root cause of it, it helps you to really how much the suffering can be reduced, or like you can manage the suffering based on the how much you can understand what's the root cause of it. I mean, that's what I understand from it. Thank you, Srini. Thank you for the session. It was really nice.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other thought? Okay, so thank you. Hari Om.